Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. If you are new here, my name is Leah. I'm a portrait photographer here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Today I'm bringing you a super easy introduction into how to remove things from your photos using Photoshop. Photoshop has been such a lifesaver when it comes to taking things out, fixing photos. Like, it's absolutely incredible. I know a lot of professionals definitely use it all the time for photo retouching. So let me go ahead and show you our base image we're going to be working with today. I took this out in Florida on a family vacation of these 3 palm trees, but I hated all the trees and greenery that was in front of them. So I wanted to turn this image into just the 3 palm trees in the sky, nice and pretty. And so we are going to be taking that image to this one right here. So we're going to take our initial image, which I have right here just on my desktop. I'm gonna go ahead and drag this down into Adobe Photoshop, and here we go. The first thing that we're gonna go ahead and do, you wanna make sure you do this for most of your projects, if not all of them. This is super important to make sure that we are keeping a good background base layer and we don't edit on that one. I'm gonna go ahead and right click and duplicate layer. And for this one, I'm just going to call it Palm Tree Copy. Naming your layers is really helpful to just making sure you have everything good. For this one, I am going to go ahead and unlock it and rename it, and we're going to call this Palm Tree Original. And then I'm going to go ahead and lock it because we are not going to use that anymore. We're going to do all the edits on the copy. Alright, so that is basically the first step into getting here. Now, if you have no idea how to use Photoshop, if you hit the Z key on your keyboard, this will give you a little magnifying glass that you can zoom in and out. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with kind of the tools that we can use. The first one I'm going to show you is using the patch tool. On your keyboard, you're going to go ahead, well, I will say I am using a Mac for all of these different keyboard shortcuts, so yours might be a little bit different, but you can change that in the Photoshop preferences. But on my keyboard for my patch tool, it is the letter J, and you'll see over here in the left, this is where my patch tool is. We're going to go ahead and zoom in down here to this first little corner of the bushes. In the right corner down here, we kind of just are taking this blue that we had from above it, so that's exactly what we're going to do with the patch tool. The patch tool basically just lets you select a part of your image and then you can kind of drag it to the part of the image you want it to look like. I'm just going to go ahead and select all of this greenery here. You'll see the dancing dotted lines. That means that you're selecting something in Photoshop. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the greenery and drag it up to where the stuff I want is there. I'm going to go ahead and let go, and voila, we now have all of that covered. Obviously it's not perfect because we have a little tree warping going on here. That is the patch tool. It's fantastic. Sometimes it's actually not my favorite because it just likes to sample things similar to it, but if you have really intricate photos, sometimes it samples the wrong thing and can just be honestly another hassle that just takes longer. But I went ahead and just did it twice because I saw that the blues were a little bit darker than they should be because this gradient is happening. And let's go ahead and go over here. I'll kind of show you what I mean, as sometimes this doesn't work too well. I'm going to go ahead and select all this greenery. Now we could patch tool our stuff up this way, but as you can see, we're getting some of that palm tree coming in. So I'm going to actually go over here to kind of that space we just did and take that instead because we don't have to worry about those palm branches anymore. So another tool that I like to use is called the clone stamp tool, which is my holy grail tool of Photoshop. I absolutely love the clone stamp tool. To use the clone stamping tool, you're going to have to use the option key on your keyboard, and you'll see that it comes up with this little like circle looking image. You're basically sampling different parts of your image and you're able to kind of like copy and paste it. Taking the option key, I'm going to hold down right here because I like this line that's happening, and you can see as I'm dragging it around, we now have that sample of the tree and I can place that anywhere we want. So I'm going to go ahead and just start clicking. You can also change the opacity up here, which is at 5% right now. I'm going to go ahead and put that up to a nice 80% just so we can make sure we are getting a lot of that coming through. But if you're trying to maybe touch up skin, or you'll see later if we're trying to get our ombres really good with the blues, we can use that at a super low opacity to get that to work a little better. I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to get that tree sample, and then I'm just going to start to create a straight line, and you can go back up and kind of grab more if you need to. But you'll see I accidentally grabbed a little bit too much up there because I got some of that leaf coming down. Already that looks a lot straighter. For anyone who doesn't know, the Command Z is how you undo something. So if you don't like something, you can just hit Command Z. So that is our first palm tree done. Again, that was using the patch tool and the clone stamp tool. The patch tool is the J and the clone stamp is the S. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my clone stamp tool and go over all of this greenery here and just get it to where we have the ombre good, because we're going to worry about the trunk a little bit later. So again, you just hit the S tool, hold down Option to click and sample where you want, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start brushing all of this on. Here is what we're going to do. I want to basically stretch that entire branch all the way down here. There's two different ways we can do it. So I'm going to give you one option and then another option. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the L key on our keyboard, which is the lasso tool. This allows us to select any part, kind of like we did with the patch tool, except it's just selecting it. It's not going to do anything, and we can move that selection around. If you want to go ahead and select something, you're going to hit the L key. I'm going to go ahead and go all the way from here, and that is the sample that I want. So a couple different things. We can either hit Command T and we can hold the Option key, and then we can make this thing bigger or smaller or anything like that. Or we can hold the Command key and we can stretch this thing all the way down. Now that is an option, and it's definitely going to be workable, and it's something we could try to do. It's definitely possible, but for me personally, I want to keep that texture looking the same. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of this here, and I'm going to hit Command J. Now what that's going to do is create a layer of what we just selected. So now I have this extra piece of tree trunk that I can move around and put pretty much anywhere on the image. Now let's go ahead and name this, because we don't want to forget what the heck this layer is. So I'm going to name it tree trunk. I'm going to go ahead and Command T that, and then I'm just going to line this up here. As you see, it's still not long enough, so I'm going to actually duplicate this layer and create another one so we can put it underneath and finish out the whole entire thing. And for that one, I'm going to duplicate this layer over here, and I'm going to call this tree trunk 2. Alright, so now you're probably wondering how we're going to fix all of this dark blue that's happening, because where we sampled from, the sky is darker than what we have down here. We're going to go ahead and create some mask layers on our tree trunks. So if you go ahead and go down here to the bottom of your screen, you'll find this little circle and it says Add Layer Mask. We're going to go ahead and hit that. Okay, so once we've made our layer mask here, we are working with this top one, so we're not going to worry about this bottom one yet. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the B key on my keyboard. We are going to have black and white in our brushes, and basically what this means is if I have, we'll put this at 100%, if I have the black brush on, it's going to take away everything that we have in that layer. So that is what a mask means. It's going to take away everything. If I hit the X on my keyboard, it switches our paint color back to white. And if we put that and we brush it on, that is going to put everything back. So white is what puts your image there and you can brush it on. Black is what takes it away. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with a little bit lower opacity, probably about 60% right now. And I'm just going to use the black color with my brush and start just ombreing this out a little bit. That is what that did, and it just made it a little bit easier to have it blended into our trunk. Now here's the problem, we have this bit of orange happening here, so I'm just going to go ahead and I took a little bit of white and put that there, and I'm just going to move this up a tiny bit and a little bit that way. Alright, so this is what we're looking like. Again, ombre over here, we're not worrying about it right now because it looks horrible. So we're going to basically do the exact same thing onto here, which if you wanted to, we could go ahead and delete this tree trunk and just copy and paste this layer now. Have our tree trunk coming in pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of touch up here with the mask. Alright, so we have our second palm tree pretty good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and worry about all of this greenery that's happening over here. So let's go ahead and work on this side. Instead of using patch, I'm going to go ahead and go over here and grab some clone stamp and use that instead, because personally I just think it does a way better job. Again, I'm not doing a perfect job at it right now, but we are just being a little messy for time. For these smaller things, you can definitely get super in close. Obviously, the more precise you are, the better it's going to look. So you'll see we have a lot of dark blue happening right here, so this is where we can go in with a super big clone stamp and a really low opacity, and I'm going to grab all of this white here and just ombre all of this out. See that this ombre isn't perfect right here, but you know what? There's clouds up here that are wispy and nice, and there's white down here, which are clouds in this scenario. So we can kind of leave it wispy and light like that, but there is a little bit of retouching over here that we need to do. Again, patch tool is great for stuff like this. All right, so this is what we're looking like, doing pretty good. Now we need to go ahead and worry about this tree trunk that's happening here. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and merge my two tree trunk layers to just make that one big trunk. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that layer, and I'm just gonna move that over here. Now, you could say that you want to be done right there and say, you know what, it's as good as it could be, let's just go ahead and stop there. But we don't want these tree trunks to look the exact same because they are different trees, so let's treat them as different trees. Go ahead and go up to our adjustments layer, and I'm going to grab the brightness and contrast. Now, we only want this to happen to our tree trunk layer, so I'm going to go ahead and create a clipping mask, which you're going to right click and select create clipping mask. I'm going to put the brightness of this one just a little bit lower, as well as the contrast. Now, you'll see what's happening. We're getting some of those darker blues that came out because we masked over here. So I'm actually going to create a mask on our tree trunk layer, and we're just going to do exactly what we did on the other side, the B key. Just going to go ahead and start masking the edges a little bit because we have some of those dark blues coming through that we don't want. And just making our tree a little bit darker than the other one, it just made it seem like it was different. Another thing you can also do is maybe flip it upside down. However, in this case there are shadows on that side, so we didn't want to have to, you know, do that all over again. A lot of times Photoshop is very just trial and error and seeing like what looks good and what doesn't, because a lot of the time it's not gonna look good and then you just go through and fix it. Alright, that is pretty much how you get rid of stuff on Photoshop. Here is our before of the original image, and here is our after. So there's definitely room for improvement. It's not perfect. It was also a bit of a fast edit so that you guys could see how it works pretty easily. Again, there is a bit of ombre not happening super well over here. I definitely did a better job on the iPad with that. That is my tutorial on how to remove things out of Photoshop. Hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. If you liked it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. Comment down below if you know how to use Photoshop or if you're really honestly afraid of it, because I know a lot of people are, and that's okay. Let me know if you guys like these kind of videos and want more Photoshop tutorials. Subscribe so you never miss out on any more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!